It was the great Erkin Khan who united the horse clans of the steppe. And together, they conquered. The victories were great, as were the losses. And no clan's contribution to the Khanate was greater than that of the Khergit. As a reward for their service, they were given the ancient town of Baltakan. Nestled between the plains and the mountains, it was considered a lesser prize. But for the Khergit, it was perfect. For while the other clans quickly adopted empire culture, the Khergit retained their love of the steppe and the freedom of nomad life. While others mocked them as dirty or repulsive, they always did so from behind their walls. For it was well known throughout the Khanate that the Khergit possessed the most fearsome horse archers on the steppe. The young boys learned to ride and walk at the same time, and the bow soon followed. The nomadic life they clung to forged them. Their riding and archery, trained through herding and hunting across the plains, all the while the elements, both blistering heat and freezing cold, toughen their bodies and spirits. To face the Khergit on open ground was suicide. It was into this clan and place a young Sanjar was born. His father had died in battle, and his mother perished from sickness. It was his aunt, Masui, who took the boy in. She placed him with her finest warriors, and under their guidance, he thrived. Even among some of the most talented horse archers, his skills were considered remarkable. And it wasn't long before he was allowed to lead scouting patrols. It is very common on the steppe for tragedy to strike the tribes, whether disease, disaster, or, very often, politics. Tribes would break apart into smaller groups, referred to as steppe bandits by the city folk. These small, tribeless war parties would roam in search of prey. Villagers and caravans were all susceptible to their attacks. And when the Khan called the clans to war, the steppe bandits were emboldened by the absence of many of the warriors. It was for this reason Masui called young Sanjar to Baltakan. The Khergit were once again riding to war. She told him he had learned the ways of the bow and horse. Now, he must learn to lead men. He was to gather a group of young warriors to enforce order within Khergit lands. Eager to prove himself worthy of the trust placed in him, he quickly gathered his men. Sanjar was eager, but he was not impulsive. He had learned much from his time scouting.
We've got no quarrel with you.
He knew the steppe bandits were feared for a reason. And so he and his men trained hard and selected their targets carefully. Their skills grew, and so did their number. The men spent their hard-earned dinars acquiring better armor, horses, and weapons. And soon, even the notorious bandits of the steppe sought to avoid Sanjar and his wolves. At times, when they captured groups of steppe bandits, some offered to join Sanjar, and at times, he accepted. For he had grown to respect these hardy rebels, and felt they were more like the steppe people than those sleeping within the filthy, walled cities. Fast, agile, brutal. The men under the banner of the Grey Wolf were to be feared. Word travels like fire on the steppe, and before long, Sanjar's name was heard from Baltican all the way to Odok. The Khan, Manchug, summoned young Sanjar and his men to Mekeb. He commanded them to strike the Aserai, who had waged war on the Khanate from the south. In true Khergit fashion, Sanjar and his men struck with terror. Villages were burned, caravans sacked. When the enemy approached with its armies, the warriors would take flight, only to double back and destroy any force who strayed too far away from the main body of the army. And now, it was not only the clans of the steppe who knew of the banner of the Grey Wolf. The Aserai begged for peace. Sanjar and his men returned to Baltican victorious and celebrated under many moons. Mesui encouraged Sanjar to seek out a wife and leverage his fame to marry into the Urkanet clan to position himself to be Khan someday. He approached Manchug for permission, and the Khan agreed. However, in a political move, Manchug offered the hand of his third daughter. Sanjar could not say no without offering great offense. But he witnessed the petty insecurity of the Khan and his distrust of the Khergit. Mesui was furious at the insult, but the wedding went on as planned. Sanjar and the young bride Aka were wed. As a wedding gift, she offered Sanjar a finely crafted long glaive, and while she was young, she was quite capable, and quickly took to running the camp when Sanjar and his men rode off to war. It was a quiet night until Sanjar's scouts came racing into the camp. A Sturgian army had entered Khergit territory and was headed to Dinar Castle. Their numbers too great for the Khergit alone. The fastest riders were dispatched to Mekeb to summon the clans to crush the invaders. But the Khan did not come. The northern villages were raided, the castle taken. Baltican and the Khergit clan left to fend for themselves. With no fear of resistance, Sanjar knew it would not be long before the Northmen came for the city. He stormed into the keep, and he cursed the Khan and the other clans for their treachery and cowardice. Mesui urged Sanjar to maintain his calm, but he had had enough. No more would the Khergit be treated as outcasts. The Khergit would need a dependable ally, and so Sanjar and his men set out to find one. It was in a tavern in Imprella that Sanjar and his most trusted men sat around a table to figure out a plan. A brazen barmaid interrupted the group. She stated she had overheard Sanjar's plight, and she pointed out that the Emperor Lucan was facing hard times as well. Perhaps they could help each other. And in the morning, he and his men set out. Lucan was not what Sanjar had expected. He was not pretentious or arrogant. He listened intently while Sanjar explained his dire situation. When he was done talking, Lucan candidly laid out his offer. If the Khergit clan would join the northern legions and help him reclaim his eastern border, he would assist Sanjar in securing Baltakan and would back the Khergit against Manchug and the other Kazakh clans. Sanjar accepted the offer and pledged the service of the Khergit to Emperor Lucan. The legions were strong, but the horse archers of the steppe had proved to be a great weakness. They could do little to stop the Kazakh hordes other than sit behind their walls. And even that strategy had failed. Now, however, fire would be met with fire. Lucan called for his legions to gather and take the war to the Kazakh. While the army was forming, Sanjar headed out with his men as a vanguard force to scout ahead and attack any isolated enemy units. It was here he ran into Manchug's personal guard. The two warlords met briefly in the middle of the battlefield. Manchug stated that he was not surprised, for the Khergit had always been disobedient dogs, whom he would soon teach a lesson. Sanjar denounced the Khan for his cowardice and told him he would learn to fear the Khergit as everyone else did. The armies collided. But the city dwellers were far away from their walls. And though Manchug claimed to have many horse archers himself, Sanjar knew the truth. There was a great divide between warriors who trained in the saddle and the ones who lived in it. Manchug's army was slaughtered. Soon after, Lucan and the legions came, and a great battle took place on the plains in front of Siratus Castle. No longer able to leverage their horse archer advantage, the Kazakh army was broken. The eastern border was soon re-established and secured. And Lucan honored his word, and the legions marched to Baltakan. When news of Sanjar's departure had reached Manchug, he had sent a force to occupy the fortress to ensure no further insurrection. These soldiers now stood in defense of the fief, but here the legions and their engines of war were at their best. The town was taken, along with Khergit Castle. Both fiefs were awarded to the Khergit for their service and loyalty to the empire. Time and time again, Manchug ordered the tribes to retake the territory, but Sanjar and his men destroyed them in the field. And when the armies that were too large for the Khergit to take alone came, Sanjar found no shortage of northern generals eager to partake in both the glory and wealth their newfound success produced. With the northern steppes secure, Sanjar now plotted revenge. He summoned the legions to the gates of Manchug's prize, Mekeb. Again, the legion prevailed. And now, the city displayed the banner of the wolf from its walls. Both Khergit warriors and steppe bandits, in search of a clan, flocked to join Sanjar's army. It was during the great feast, celebrating the victory of Mekeb, that an imperial messenger arrived. His face forlorn. He announced for all to hear that Emperor Lucan had passed. The music stopped. The hall fell silent. The messenger then asserted that Sanjar had been ordered by Asaron, son of Lucan, to depart immediately for the town of Argoron so that he could swear fealty to the new emperor. Sanjar felt 1,000 eyes fall upon him. He sat for a second and then stood up slowly. He proclaimed his sadness at the loss of such a great man, who had been a true friend of the Khergit. He then turned to the messenger and informed him that he would not be riding to Argoron, for he was no longer a vassal. He was a Khan, and the Khergit Khanate would soon rule over the Great Steppe. Any who challenged him would be met with bow and flame. And so began the rise of the Khergit. I hope you all are enjoying my Guides and Rise Up series, and I try to immerse myself in every faction I play. But don't y'all ever get it twisted. I'm a Khergit main, and I fell in love riding under the banner of the great Sanjar Khan back in Warband. I just love everything about it, from the horses, the bows, the faction, the music, the steppes. I'm in. Here you can see the steppe bandits have always been a problem on the steppe, so we try to include them, and I like to pick them up to help me fight, especially early game. Try to incorporate them into my armies. Here we have the gray wolf as the national animal, or the horse and a horse archer, whichever you prefer. You'll see that the faction color from Warband is purple. However, the Empire factions in Bannerlord are all purple, so it gets a little confusing to add another purple faction. So I went with black and a gray wolf, but if you're just determined to keep it 100% loreful, make sure you grab some shade of purple if you can. When we talk about that playthrough and the tactics that we're going to use, almost entirely mounted troops and superb horse archers. Well, that sounds like all Khansguard to me, if I've ever heard it. I will say the Khansguard are a little overpowered, but it's okay to have fun. And I just so enjoy the horse archer armies. They're so much fun to use, and the tactics that you can get into. So we're going to go with horse archers only. And for me, I prefer to keep it to Khansguard and bandits. And eventually, with the right leadership perk, you can convert the bandits into Khansguard, which is really nice when you need to take a group of guys with you for replacements. Grab some steppe bandits, pull them in your army, capture them, whatever. You can convert them as you go. The only rules for this playthrough, horse archers only, and the only no-no is any type of engineering. You can't have an engineer. You can't have any points in engineering. We are masters of the open field, and the goal is to try to lure your enemies out of their fortress and ride them down. Now, there may be times when you have to conduct a siege, and then you're going to have to do it the Khergit way, where you burn the villages, starve the garrison, and then you hit the keep. So, horse archers only, no engineering whatsoever, get some. Once you start your own kingdom and recruit other Khergit clans, they're going to bring in those other types of troops. But the Khergit are famed for their horse archers and crushing in the open field. That's what we're going to focus on as the Khergit clan. Now, I'm not going to go crazy into my Khan build because I've already covered it in another video. My maximum Khanage video right here, if you're interested in that, covers my favorite build and how I like to use my horse archer army, although I will show some battle tips here. But I just want to touch on a few things and a few questions that I consistently see in the comments. The first one that I think a lot of people are confused on, and I've seen asked a few times here, is the combination of mounted patrols here in the riding tree coupled with keen sight in the scouting tree. The idea is that the minus 50% escape chance here and the minus 50% chance here gives you a 100% chance of preventing enemy lords from escaping that you capture, which means if you beat them once, you can hold on to the 60 or 70 you're going to have to collect to get the AI to surrender. But at least they don't get away and go, you don't have to keep farming them over and over. It's a one-shot, one-kill thing. The devil's in the details here. To get the benefit of this talent, you have to be the party leader. And it's the same in scouting. So if you give your scout keen sight, you will get the benefit of having minus 50% sight penalty when traveling in the forest, which you won't be doing a lot of on the steppe, but maybe into the late game, that's nice. However, you do not get the benefit of the minus 50% chance of prisoner lords escaping if this isn't on the party leader. So unless the main character or party leader has this, you don't get this extra benefit. So if you put this on your scout, all you're going to get is the sight penalty reduction when traveling through forest. You don't get the reduction to escaping lords. And so when people in the comments sometimes are like, it's stupid to take high scouting, well, maybe not so stupid, right? Because the only way you get the benefit of this perk is if you're the party leader and it's your scouting that's this high. And 225 takes some investment. Now, you could probably get this high with 2 or 3 attributes and 5 focus. You don't need to go this high. But I love to go high scouting in my Khergit build because I do like to get the combination of keen sight and mounted patrols. Further, getting this uncanny insight perk makes your all horse archer army, which is already insanely mobile, scream. And it just is so thematic and fun. Really plays in to that Mongol fantasy that we're all living out in our Khergit playthroughs. So that's my spiel on keen sight and mounted patrols. You only get the combo, and it only counts if you're the party leader. On my horse archers, I always just use the smaller noble bow instead of the noble longbow. I like the speed that you can spit out rounds. Also, staying with that Khergit theme, I like to grab the stacked steppe arrows. They don't have the pierce that some of the other arrows do, but you'll see that stack amount right there, 36. Between these two quivers, I've got 72 shots. And then you throw all that together with some high bow skill that increases reload speed and damage, and you are slinging hate out. And you'll see in the battle section what that looks like. Horse archery is kind of hot or cold. You get on a heater where you're landing shots left and right. Sometimes you can't hit the broadside of a barn. Don't worry about it. Just keep throwing them out. And the only other perk that I kind of insist on that I typically don't take, but with my Khergit playthroughs I do, is right here in the medicine tree. I like to grab the veterinarian one rather than the siege medic because first off, siege medic is insanely powerful at sieges and you should be discouraged from sieging in this build. On top of that, Veterinarian is fantastic in case your awesome horse, which in this playthrough I was able to win an Assalagat in a tournament. And if this baby ever gets hurt or wounded, just throw him in the inventory. Make sure that you lock them so you don't sell them. If you don't know that trick, you can lock stuff so that you can ensure that you don't sell it. And with this perk, you get a 30% daily chance to recover that horse. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. And for a guy that was raised on the steppes around horses, I just think this is an essential perk and really adds to the theme and the flavor of the playthrough. And so that's a few of the highlights. And if you'd like a further breakdown of a Khergit playthrough, I've got both a beginner's guide and my maximum carnage guide, both in the description if you're interested in those. We're getting to the heart of the Civil War here. And I'll show you just how badass a horse archer can be. You'll see right away in this battle that there's snow on the ground, which slows horse movement. Also, it's snowing, which is going to reduce the damage and accuracy of my bows. Now, that kind of sucks, and this weather's not ideal, but as you can see, I've brought a few Kongsgard, so it doesn't affect me as much. We're going to be just fine. Let's do this, boys. God, I love this game. Look how badass this horse archer army is. Loads of arrows, loads of armors and glaives, and we're just kicking ass and taking names. When you fight the Khergit, they love to send out those horse archers and get them started early. And so at the start of every battle, we're going to have a giant horse archer on horse archer battle. And the key here is just to get it pumping. Just let your boys do the work, and you can see how fast I'm putting these rounds out. This is the advantage of that small bow. And this is what you want. Let the horse archers come to you, pump them full of damage. Their infantry troops are trying to close right now. And we're just putting them down. And what we're going to do is just keep the pressure up on these horse archers. What I really like to focus on when I'm playing a horse archer army, especially when you're heavily outnumbered, is try to isolate different sections of the enemy army. Try to either attack their cavalry or their horse archers or their archer line. Try to attack some units of their army and whittle them down before you try to take on the main force. And sometimes by doing that, you can provoke them. Also, drag them out across the battlefield a little bit. And so here come the archers and stuff. And look at those guys just pouring it in. And I'm saving my rounds because, look, these are not good shots. Plus, at this distance with the snow, if I do hit, it's hardly going to do anything. And we're going to let them soften them up. Now, you'll see that my entire army is pretty much shooting into shields. Well, that sucks. And what would be better is if half of my army was behind them shooting them, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Pull up my horse archers and I split them. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do that. I just do it very quickly. So I split my army in half and I send half of them around, and I'm peeling the other half this way with me so that we can get on both sides of this shield wall here and really get to working these boys down. There we go. That's a much better picture. And now we're going to come in this way and we're going to get in a little closer. Okay, so I did a bad job here because now they already did a full rotation and they about caught up. But that's fine. We can bring them around here. You're very susceptible to lances with no shield, so do be careful in the melee. Why it's important to get your armor up. So let's get around here. And the whole goal is just to get that circle of death going around. We've still got some enemy horse archers here. And then once I get in position here, one of the greatest things to do, and probably what's one of my favorite things about Bannerlord is just send your section around too. Put them on auto. You kids today got no appreciation for this Horse Archer AI, but if you had played Warband, oh my God, the micro we had to do to keep our entire Horse Archer army from dying was just insane. And every once in a while, you'll see a few guys go crashing through the middle, but that's just those badass Khergit warriors trying to make a name for themselves. They're brave and they do that. And so I think it's kind of awesome. Don't mind it one bit. What do I always tell you? I'd rather have a horse I got to put reins on than spurs. So don't worry about your guys running through the line. You just keep pumping out that damage and using those arrows to whittle down these troops, looking for those targets of opportunity and really trying to keep from putting the arrows in the shield. The damage isn't so great in the snow, so the armor and the snow both reduce the damage, but you can see it's still pretty effective and we're doing all right. Put those arrows out. And the best part about this build is once you're done with the arrows, you come in with the glaive. And the beautiful thing about the glaive is, see these spearmen with that short spear? If you sit far enough away from them, they really can't hit you with it. And you can reach out there and clap them with your glaive and they really can't do shit. Because the range is such, well, that's what you want to avoid. This thing is so powerful. You are just an offensive machine. Love the long glaive. People are always like, this build sucks at a siege. And I'm like, what's a siege? That's what the city peasants are for. There's not going to be much problem with a siege when you've destroyed all the field armies, burned the villages, and they're sitting in there starving their asses off, and all they've got's 150 militia garrison left. You're going to be just fine in a siege. You just sit back, rest your sweet little con ass on that beautiful mount of yours, and let the city peasants do their thing. That's what the footies are for. Yeah! Good job, fellas. You guys kick ass and you look awesome. I love everybody on this battlefield. So badass. I just love the Khanate and being Khan. It suits me, you know? You can see that even under less than ideal circumstances, that Horse Archer army is going to shine for you, and you can only imagine what it does under ideal ones. It's time for you to get that Horse Archer horde and get to kicking ass, family. Have a blast. Oklahoma out.